So do you play FTK, or do you play the Invoked engine, or do you play the Dark engine and break boards for your Ogdoadics? Which is the best build? Hey guys, this is Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are really awesome people. Now, today I'm going to be showcasing to you guys my Ogdoadic build. And my build is a hybrid between the Dark and the Invoked. And shoutouts. Actually, I have to give shoutouts to Team Samurai X1. I've been testing this one all day, and thanks to his end board combo, whoever that came up with it, if it was him, shoutouts to him. If there's anyone else, shoutouts to you guys as well. I don't know who it is. But yes, the end board was really clean, so I really enjoyed it. And I also need to give a shout out to the Ready for Duel for showcasing the the current FTK of it. I know there's older variants back in February, but this variant was like 2 cards, super consistent, and that's where I saw it. So that's that. But I'm gonna give my take on the FTK, but if that's not what you're here for, skip right on ahead to the combos of how you can kill your opponent with the basic 4 cards basically, and also my build and my explanation of how my build works. Anyways, as for the FTK, so the first thing you have to do to prevent this FTK is hit that like button and ding the subscription, or else you'll be cursed with your opponent having the perfect hand and you having no hand trap. But on a more serious note, this particular FTK using the Maku mech and do the Ultimaya, Phantasmal Lord, switch shirt control, burn for 9k. It's a very interesting combo considering that you only need 2 cards to perform it. You need some access to asset, and you just need the Nalya, and then you just can set up the whole thing. Snake Rain can do the exact same thing too. And so here's how it kind of went down for me. Trying it for the last like 3 hours, you can't really win matches with this. Like, just don't bother. Just play a more solid build in general, because like Team Samurai X1 recommend, like, yeah, put it in your deck. It'd be fun, you'll catch people off guard. The thing is, it's only gonna work once, and if you're playing a match, there's a lot of hand traps that can cripple it. DD Crow on your curse, when it activates, tributing your card, and then you crow out your curse, then you lose everything. There's no combo follow-up, and there's practically no back row, so you're a sitting duck moving forward. Nibiru can happen at any point. You over summon by like a ton, and there's no negation midway through unless you're playing the Invoked build. But then if you're doing the Invoke combo, you don't have space for the Ultimaya stuff, so there's that. Ash is not exactly the best hand trap because there's a ton of follow-up. Usually Ash, you want to save it for Snake Rain, but it's hard to guess whether or not there's a good timing for that. So maybe it's actually better to stop the Nalya from searching one of the water lilies. Gamma is really good. Gamma can stop basically any monster that would summon additional cards. All the hard ones per turns that you can hit. Alright, you can just hit it, or you can imperm on the Maku mech so that you don't take the burn damage and you have a ton of free tokens to work with on your own turn. And you can also use Ghost Bell on the Bujinki what's his name, Hashima, so that you don't get that free Maku mech summon. And that's kind of really it. There's just a ton of weak points, and playing against meta matches, like all the matches, all in all, I'm like less than 30% on matches just trying to just FTK my opponent, and sometimes you don't get it. And the other big problem is you run a ton of bricks, and you also eat up a ton of your extra deck space for stuff dedicated only for that FTK. Yeah, it doesn't feel really good. So anyways, let's move on to the deck. Okay, for the main deck here, starting off with some of the level 4s, we have Nunus and we have Nalyas. These are 3-ups. These are your combo setters. They set up the graveyard. If you have both of them in your hand, then you have the engine, the recursive engine live, and that's what you want in the early hand, which is why Snake Rain is more or less the same, because Snake Rain is also 2 cards and basically throw in Nunu, Nalya, and their respective targets into the graveyard. Ideally, you want to have all the different names in the graveyard, since you just mainly play the graveyard, which is why this deck has a big weakness of anything that is, grave hate. But okay, looking at this, there's also a Zoha. Zoha is your hand management. If you open with a bunch of level 8s, this is the card that if it's in the graveyard, it gets to fetch itself back out by switching places with the ones in your hand. And if it's sent to the graveyard or special summoned, sent to the grave from field or summoned, from the graveyard, special summon, you get to mini rota. Your opponent also gets to, draw a card and throw one into the graveyard. You also get to add one and throw it into the graveyard. Yeah, I don't really like how this deck has like a burden where your opponent basically gets free stuff for you activating your card effects. That part doesn't really sit well with me, but That's why I'm choosing to play the Lair of Darkness stuff, and I'm trying to end the game as soon as possible, cut it short so that the advantage that they gain will not matter. Then there are the actual combo pieces, which is Alarit and Curse. Now, Alarit, I play 2 of each. You guys are probably thinking, hey, why are you playing so many of these? These guys are bricks. I do play Trade-In to throw them into the graveyard, and it does throw off my opponent from using Ashes, because they'd be like, do I save it for... Like, once you throw everything into the graveyard, the Ash is a little bit too late at that point, so they'll have to think about how they want to use this, and, you know, just give them more things to Ash, just so they can bait out the Ash and then throw Snake Rain into the graveyard. So yeah, that's kind of the purpose. Curse and Alarit are +1s for your opponent as well, because this one adds a card from the graveyard, and this one lets them get a summon. I don't mind giving them the free summon, and like if they have stuff in their graveyard, they will get the free summon, and that kind of blocks them from using like gammas and stuff like imperms. It's neat, but it's likely that they can also ignore, because that is an optional effect. Now, this is your Grave Summoner. This is your shuffle back some of your stuff. Nunu and now, like basically Nunu and Nalya. Nalya is your searcher for your spells, and Nunu is also your free summon from the graveyard. This is your combo, basically, you know, the Sparklight here. You know, this sparks the whole thing up, and it gets banished if you summon itself. But then you get to cycle everything back with Ogdoadic Dark, because Alarit just gets to shuffle, well not shuffle, but place 2 of your banished ones back into the graveyard, and anything that Curse summons gets banished if it leaves the field. So yeah, there's that. And finally, the actual bosses. I'm only playing the King and the Queen because I don't want to play the big guy. The big guy is not bad. I mean, if you bait out your opponent's cards correctly and then you use a Water Lily, then you get to summon it out for free, and then you get to wipe their board. The problem is, Curse, whatever that Curse summons out doesn't get sent, because anything that is summoned from the graveyard will remain on the field. And that's why I'm like, you know what? I've misplayed that a couple times already, that I just don't feel comfortable with just like a boss monster that doesn't exactly clear the entire board. I mean, it's big, but I'd rather just go into the extra deck. Now into like the weird dark stuff, Darkest Diablos, you tribute a dark, then you get the free summon. And level 8 body is exactly what you want to play the rank 8s. I played double copies of Arima the Wicked Warden. It's because I need additional copies to fetch out my Lair of Darknesses, mainly for the Lair of Darkness fetch. And if I already have the Lair of Darkness, I can use this as like a, you know, random tribute on my opponent's side, which is great. But being able to tribute my opponent's monster and break boards, I'll show you the combo to how to OTK your opponent. Basically, with just if you have, well, kind of, I guess more or less it's like a three carder, but like if you have Nunu and Nalya already set up in the graveyard with like the other pieces, then if you have Lair of Darkness, you can kill your opponent as long as they have an attack position monster, which is great. And I'm sorry guys, we have to play Dragoon package. It's just Dragoon package. We have to, just so the end board gets so much cleaner if you have the Dragoon package. And if you open it within your hand, well, you can always discard it and just not play it. And then this is, you know, the hardest summoning card here, the Alistair the Invoker. You don't run any normal summons for the most part. I mean, your key normal summons probably going to be the Zoha and the Nalya. Oh my god, these names. Those are your key normal summons because those are the +1 normals, but Alistair's probably one of the better ones because you're playing Lights and Darks, so that's how I'm going to be tuning my deck. I think it's pretty standard to actually play with Alistair's because it builds the best end board. Otherwise, your end boards are only going to be rank 8 end boards. In other words, don't play going first, just play going second, crack boards instead. And as for Terraforming being my field spell, we are playing Triple Meltdown. Of course, we're going to play Triple Meltdown, but we're also playing 2 copies of Lair of Darkness. Very easily fetchable. You don't really want to see too much of this card, but you also, it's more or less my way of breaking boards using my opponent's resources. And if you drop this on your opponent, 100% they're going to negate it. And if you have a second one, then that means you wasted their card. And it generates a lot of token, which also makes you a little bit weak to evenly match. Then there's Triple Invocation. I don't think there's much to talk about for the Triple Invocation there. Water Lily, if you're using Water Lily, Ogdoadic Water Lily, make sure that you're able to get the summon effect. I mean, if you're not getting the summon effect once per turn, then you're probably misplaying it. Unless you're forced to open with this card with an Alistair, you can still end with a decent board as long as you have Dragoon. Otherwise, your board's a little bit flimsy. A little bit is an understatement. It is very flimsy. But yeah, that's your once per turn Foolish Burial / if you have 5 different reptile names in the graveyard, you can special summon a reptile in your graveyard, which is something something that can be hit by both Ash and Ghost Spell, regardless if you have the correct names or not. Then we have Snake Rain. This is your best opener because it just dumps a bunch of snakes. Then we have the Red Eyes Fusion, just the one of. It's kind of fun because you can probably start with the Red Eyes Fusion sometimes if you do, and then just like set a card and just play through it. And I'm playing Triple Trading because I am poor. Well, mainly because I want to dump away a lot of the cards. And the reason why I'm playing so many of, as I mentioned before, I'm playing like a lot of the curses and the Alarids, is because there are Invoked players, and there are also Eldritch players, and they like to get rid of stuff in your graveyard frequently. And whenever they hit the Alarit, that's when it really hurts because I can't grind. So I made sure that I want to minimize the amount of damage that does. And don't forget about Ice Dragon's Prison. That's also another key point why I run so many, because I don't want my engine to immediately die, and I'm expecting to grind against a lot of these opponents these days anyways. Now let's go into the extra deck. Now card number 1 is one card that I do not have. We are going to look into Artemis. Just, you need to run such a tight package of everything here. The reason why I'm able to fit everything is because I decided to cut things to its bare bones. So Artemis is the first one. I'm not going to run Almirage plus Secure Gardener. Don't have the space for that. But instead, what I do have space for are these Link monsters. Well, Predaplant, Verti Anaconda, because that's my Link. We have also a Cross Sheep, and we have a Reptiline Echidna. This is for the OTK. This is for board building, so they kind of go like mainly for going second, mainly for going first. Oh, this is also for going first as well. And these are your only Link monsters. Well, actually, well, not the only ones, but those are your 4 Link monsters. Now for the fusions, we have 1 Caliga and only 1 Mega Bug because I have no space for anything more. Caliga, I like Caliga because you can pair it with a Dingirzu, and that gets super annoying. More or less, kind of like your own little mini Winda against your opponent. So I think that's the combination I like to use if I'm just gonna suppress the board. And of course, your last fusion is gonna be the Dragoon. Nothing too special there, just Dragoon doing Dragoon things. And then this is like shoutouts to Sam. I just really, it's mainly for opening boards. I haven't really done it mid game too often, but it is really good to have a decent monster on the field and something that values the trigger of being tributed to get these two stacked together. Then of course there's the rest of these guys. One of your key member would be King of the Feral Simps. Imps. But yeah, this is your Rhoda for all reptile, and it's really easy to use. You can use this with just basically overlay it with the Alistair. That's the main out for that, to summon it out. And then for 8s, we have Dingirzu, one of your best toolboxes. If you have to open with just your 8s, you have no Alistair access, and you have 2 8s, then you should probably go into a Dingirzu plus maybe a Draglubian, and the Draglubian will summon out your Hope Harbinger. And then that's pretty good. And speaking of Hope Harbinger, of course, there's going to be a number 100 Numeron Dragon. That's how you're going to OTK your opponent. That's what I'm going to show to you guys. And finally, there is the Azu Sky Thunder. Just stack it. If you're going to be playing the Lair build, then obviously you don't run as many of the other engine, and you can actually stack up on just multiple Dingirzus, and not just multiple Dingirzus, but you can also just crank up the Draglubian as well, so that you can guarantee the OTK and you have like a guaranteed resummon. Yeah, that's probably the best way of doing it. So that's the main deck and the extra deck. Let's just dig into some quick combos here. So I'm going to start off with the kill shot combo. Say you're going second, or your graveyard is already set up with the Nalya, Nunu, Light, Dark, and you have a Lair of Darkness ready. So even for like, I guess Dragon Link boards would be the worst because they have that negation, but if they have 2 monsters on the board, one in attack, like basically one in attack position, just activate the Lair of Darkness. You can use it to even bait stuff out, and then you can still like at least establish a board to go into Dingirzu to wipe the rest of the board, because you have to bait out all the negation, because this is super threatening, especially if you have everything already set up in the graveyard. Imagine you do, we activate both of these, they're all in the graveyard, you have both your Curse and your Dark. So what you would do in this particular instance is that you would start off by activating Curse. Even though you have nothing on your side, if you'll just tribute one of your opponent's monsters, alright? Just get rid of it, summon it on your side. They'll probably summon it back on their side in defense mode, knowing that what you're going to do is more or less just going to straight up kill them. From here, of course, the Curse will now activate, and with Curse activating, you summon out the Nulia. Nulia's effect, we're going to grab the Water Lily. Now we can use the Nunu, activate the Nunu, summon that out, and you're going to use both of these, and we're going to go into King of the Feral Imps. King of the Feral Imps, we're going to detach. It doesn't really matter what you detach. We're just going to add basically anything. Like, we haven't even normal summoned here, which is why you should probably add something that can be normal summoned. You can add the Zoha if you want. I'm just gonna grab something. Where are my? There, I'll grab the Zoha just because I can normal it. I remember I didn't normal summon here. From here, you can just normal summon out, say, the Zoha, and we're gonna link these guys off, putting everything in the graveyard. We're going to link into our Echidna. Echidna's effect, we're going to target the thing that is in attack position, making it 0. Now remember, Echidna's ruling here is that only if you activate the effect to search, you'll be locked into summoning reptiles only, but we're not going to do that because we just zeroed out your opponent's monster, and then you can just activate the Water Lily. And you can summon up basically anything. You can, because if you look in the graveyard, you have 5 names already. So no matter what you throw into the graveyard, it is going to stick. So that's more or less a free summon. I'm just going to go for like the Ogdoadic King. So dump into the graveyard and then summon it out. That's the actual proper procedure. And then you can just overlay the two if you want. And if you don't want to do that, you can actually do something a bit more funky, because you can use Predaplants as well. But anyways, if you want to just kill your opponent, just overlay the two into your Draglubian effect. You're going to detach a card, and with the detaching of a card, you get to summon out your 100 Dragon. Then just put the Hope Harbinger underneath, and then you can go into battle phase. We'll detach first before we go to battle phase, and then you just attack over it, and that'll be 9k because this is 0. It's a free. It's like almost like a Utopia double kind of style OTK, because you set the whole thing up too. So that's why the card advantages would just matter less. Okay, so let's start with a weaker hand first, and then we'll go into the OP stuff. So starting off with like Invoker with the Water Lily, like this is not ideal because you want Water Lily mid combo, but this is the case where you would actually use it like a Foolish Barrel. You would. Now, here's the tip number 1: if you're gonna use Water Lily, make sure you use it first, and so that you can actually get a proper dump into the graveyard. We'll get the Nunu into the graveyard, and then we are going to activate the Nunu right away, so that we don't hinder itself. Because if you summon out the Alistair, Nunu is not going to be able to summon out of the graveyard. So we summon the Nunu first, now normal summon out the Alistair. Alistair is going to add the Invocation. Alright, that's my hand. And now you can overlay these two. This is why the Dragoon is so necessary for this, because you can't really go into the cross sheep stuff because it's just not going to work out. You won't have the proper names. Okay, so with this, we go into our King of the Feral Imps, detach the Alistair, and with that, we add to our hand the Nulia, activate the Nulia, throw it into the graveyard the Curse. Curse will now activate, tributing the Feral Imps, summoning out the Light, and activate that. That's going to special summon our Nulia. Nulia is going to activate. Now, that's why you want the Water Lily later, and that's for this reason. Now you can't activate this one because they are hard ones per turn. With that, we're just going to do whatever. Technically, you can just activate your Invocation right now and banish both the Alistair and the Nunu. If you banish them both like this, what's going to happen is that you get the Invoked Mechaba. And these two, you can just, one will get banished, the other hits the grave. You can go into your Predaplant Verte Anaconda and activate your Invocation, put it back into the deck, add back the Alistair, and now you can activate the Verte Anaconda, dump the Red Eyes Fusion, summon out Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And if you think this is a liability, you can activate the effect and then pop it with Dark Dragoon, and then you'll just have 2 monsters so that you can't really get super polyed. Alright, that's one of your options. That's like one thing you can do. But you know, this is the end board if you have the Dragoon. If you don't have Dragoon, then you're just ending with 1 Mecha and that's just not that great. And time for the big difference. Like, what if it was not a copy of the Water Lily? What if it was an Ogdoadic Remnant? So, same thing. Activate the Nunu, and we're going to dump into the graveyard our Dark. So, Alarit has to hit the graveyard. Where are you? Man, there you are. Alarit, hit the graveyard. Activate the Nunu to special summon itself out. Normal summon out the Alistair. Alistair adds the copy of Invocation. Once again, we're going to perform this particular part. We're going to overlay into King of the Feral Simps. We're going to detach the Alistair to add a card. We're going to add the other Remnant, Ogdoadic Remnant, Nulia. That's out of hand. Activate the Nulia, and now we're going to throw into the Graveyard Curse. Activate the Curse, tributing the King of the Feral Imps. This gets summoned onto the field, and that's going to give your opponent a monster if they have anything. Then there's going to be the summoning of the Nulia. Nulia now adds the Water Lily. Alright. And from here, these two can finally do some cross sheep shenanigans. So you go into the cross sheep. Where are you? Like, this extra deck is so tightly packed that you can still do all this. So you go into the cross sheep now. And with the cross sheep, this is, I believe, still here. You can now activate the Water Lily. You can go into a Zoha. You can put it into the graveyard, summon it out, and then you can then throw something else into the graveyard. I would probably just throw another light in just because you're going to be banishing one. Let's just throw in another new Nunu. Now we're going to activate our Invocation, and we're going to banish the Alistair, and we're also going to banish, I guess, our Nunu, I guess. And that's going to give us the Mechaba. This is going to trigger our Cross Sheep, and we're just going to summon back our Nunu. From here, I believe the step was to go into Rika Fairy, Strenna, and if Strenna has material while she's tributed, which we're going to use Alarit to do, activate Alarit, tribute this, summon Alarit onto the field. That is going to also let us chainlink 1, chainlink 2. Well, if you want to keep things alive, I'll probably put Strenna as chainlink 1 because way more valuable, and chainlink 2, we're gonna get these guys back. So we're gonna get our 2 snakes back, and then Strenna is gonna come back and summon out a plant, Xyz on top, and now we got a Sacred Tree Beast. And from here, we can activate the Invocation, put it back into the deck, add the Invoker back into our hand, and we can link these two. I believe this is where we go into our Verte Anaconda, activate Verte Anaconda, dump Red Eyes Fusion, dump these two, and we get ourselves the Dragoon. And now you can activate the Dragoon, pop this thing so that you can't get super polyed. Yes! So a bunch of negations, and that's kind of how you play this one. Like, that's why the board Like otherwise, I don't think there's like a stronger board that you would really develop with just rank 8s. It's decent. You can play Galaxy Eye's Photon Lord. That one's not bad. You go with if you can get triple 8s, go with Photon Lord, Hope Harbinger plus a Ding. The board is more or less unbreakable. And just to close out with a bit of side decking remark, try Twin Twisters. Back rows are going to be your worst nightmare, and they're already going to get a ton of free monsters, so there's not much you can really do about that. But Twin Twisters, you want to end the game as soon as possible. Alphas are also pretty good. Anything that's within the level 8 range is always going to help with your exceeding capabilities. Try to use Dingirsu to keep your stuff alive, just so that you don't have to worry about blinding into a torrential tribute or eating a needle ceiling. That's why he's there. And remember, if you force stuff out with Lair of Darkness, which basically means you can get free access to just taking a path all the way to Zeus and emptying the board. That's what I typically do, and then I just win with the Zeus afterwards. Or if I have my stuff in the graveyard and I have my normal summon, especially if Zoha's in the graveyard, then I can just summon out the Zoha and just set up the whole combo all over again and just play with different rank 8s until my opponent just loses and just can't outgrind the situation, basically. And yeah, that's kind of my recommendation here. So if you guys enjoyed this deck profile combo and just my take on like the FTK whatever, well, leave it down in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash thumbs up, and if you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, and yeah, hit the subscribe, ding notification bell, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.